whether it's Andy Reid taking over the Chiefs going on over a decade ago, whether it's Coach Q taking over the Royals, I mean, JJ taking over in the front office for the Royals from Dayton Moore, whatever analogy you want to use, this stuff takes time. And in politics, it takes more time because the person you elect cannot do everything on their own. They need Congress to play along. And we know for the most part, Congress is a feckless body and a useless operation, and has been for a very long time. So the president's trying to basically say, don't forget how bad it was. Don't forget why you put me in office. And let's talk about and share some of the things that were big wins over the last 11 months. And here's why we believe this plan is going to work even better going into 2026. And you got all the networks to carry it. I mean, I checked them all out. Obviously, I was listening here on KCMO Talk Radio. I knew the other station in town wasn't doing anything with the speech. All the major broadcast outlets had it. I know if you're a big Survivor fan, which I guess there still are people out there who like Survivor, you had Survivor interrupted for the President of the United States in this 18-minute speech last night. But you got a lot of good information. Now, would I like to hear more empathy? More, listen, I know you're hurting. I understand the damage that's been done to this economy over the last few years. We basically have a K-shaped economy. Asset owners, whether it's real estate, whether it's investments, they've been able to beat inflation the last few years. If you are not an asset owner, it's been very difficult because the value of your dollar has continued to go down. So that's where the president could have used a little more empathy, but overall, I thought his message was loud and clear. Now, some people said, speaking of loud, he was too loud. He was yelling, and I'm like, I don't know. I didn't get that sense. I saw a lot of people on social media after the fact be like, why is he yelling at me? Well, I think he knew he had 18 minutes. He had to get the speech out. He had to keep it moving. I didn't hear somebody yelling at me, though. That's not what I heard. I know everyone's looking to nitpick some of this stuff, but there was a lot of good information that was rolled out there yesterday. 913-4087-957. You heard a lot from the President of the United States last night. And then, what were people saying after the... Here's Trump ally and former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. All right. Like Newt, was it good? Yes. Was it important? Yes. Did it set the table for 2026? Absolutely. Is anybody going to remember it come Monday? No. what the plan is to get more people into homes around the country. The text line is also 913-408-7957. Put that one right in your phone. That way you can text the show whenever you want. Let's go to Paola. That's where Tom is this morning. What's up, Tom?
Hey, good morning, Pete.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how about that bonus he's giving to the military? 1776. See what he did there.
Yes, sir. Yes. And that no taxes on the 1776. I mean, listen, I liked that, Tom. I have no issue with giving the military a little extra cheese. I do, the precedent, though, I don't want to rain on the parade. The one thing I wondered, though, Tom, was like, all right, if Joe Biden or whoever the next Democrat president is says, you know what, I'm cutting $2,000 checks only to Somalian immigrants because they're real patriots. Like, I don't know. Did Congress approve it? How does that work? I don't have the answer.
Yeah. I agree.
That was the only thing. I love it, Tom. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. I'm gonna ask Mark Alford about that next hour. He's gonna be on at 7:20, and I'm gonna say, listen, I'm all about giving money to the troops, okay? But who approved that, and how does that work? And could a Democrat president just say, here's $2,000 to every one of my voters? Like, rah, rah. I don't know. I don't have the answer. Steve, go ahead.
1776, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Woo! That's what we voted. Woo! That's what we voted for. And we need to do 1776 to the entire taxpayer. No taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security, no the 1776 tariff rebate. I mean, I think they got something here, man. To every taxpayer.
No.
Forget it.
No. We're $38 trillion in debt. We're finally getting inflation under control. I'm not looking to light it on fire, but I can tell you've been celebrating since that speech ended last night, Steve. You haven't stopped, have you?
That's right. This economy is about to take off like a rocket ship, man. You will not believe the growth we're going to have next year. And just hold the line. It's going to be a beautiful thing, and a beautiful time to be alive.
All right. Thank you very much there, Steve. I think he's on a 10-hour bender.
Got the espresso.
Yeah. Well, I think it was laced with something, too.
Heavy duty.
Yeah. Espresso.
High octane.
Espresso and bourbon, maybe. Speech ended literally.
Hey, while you were doing the heavy-duty lifting last night, I was scouting the periphery. Do you know the preferred activity of the opposition last night?
No.
Was to watch a Rob Reiner movie.
Is that right?
Yeah. Princess Bride popular, and When Harry Met Sally. So that probably explains a movie doesn't play well on the radio, so that might explain your earlier observation from our competitor.
They were playing a movie on the radio?
No, I'm saying you can't do that, so that's why, they had nothing going on over there.
Now you're making me feel drunk like Steve. I'm confused. All I know is they didn't air the speech last night.
Right.
That's all I know. It's 6:16. It's great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. Good morning. Glad you're joining us on 95.7 FM. Always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. The U.S. government's admitting liability in something tragic from earlier this year that involved one of our own, many of our own. We'll tell you about it next.
From Smithville to Shawnee Mission, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, the U.S. government is now admitting failures by the pilots of an Army Black Hawk helicopter and a controller in the Reagan National Airport Tower during the January 29th mid-air collision over the Potomac River that killed 67 people who were coming to D.C. from Wichita. This admission is part of court documents filed by the Department of Justice in U.S. District Court in D.C. on Wednesday in a civil lawsuit brought earlier this year by the family of a passenger killed on that American Eagle Flight 5342. The new filing says, quote, the United States admits that it owed a duty of care to plaintiffs, which it breached. So, of course, we had 67 people that got killed in that midair collision in an absolute tragedy earlier this year. And here's what we know. Here's what the government is admitting. The United States admits pilots flying PAT-25 failed to maintain proper and safe visual separation from American Eagle Flight 5342. That is the Black Hawk helicopter that, of course, collided in midair with that American Eagle flight. The U.S. government also admits in the suit that an air traffic controller in the tower did not comply with an FAA order governing air traffic control procedure. The statement adds here, the United States is admitting the Army and the FAA's responsibility for the needless loss in the crash of an Army helicopter and American Airlines flight at Reagan National. However, the government rightfully acknowledges that it is not the only entity responsible for this deadly crash. So they're admitting that the Black Hawk helicopter was not paying attention, more or less. They had distractions, if you want to be a little more lenient, and that there are also issues with air traffic controllers. So this thing is now, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, air traffic controllers did not comply with an FAA order governing air traffic control procedure. That's a problem. And then you also have basically a distracted Black Hawk helicopter. And that leads to this tragedy that leaves 67 people dead coming to D.C. from Wichita. I mean, I'm glad they're admitting this a year later. It doesn't obviously bring anybody back, but at least that's a step in the right direction because we really hadn't had anything come out of the story in quite some time. But that whole airspace around Reagan National, if you've ever flown in there, and I have probably, half a dozen times, it's unlike anything else. Like, even if you fly into New York or Boston and some other major city, they have the airport set up in a way where even though it's a major city, you're not typically landing anywhere near downtown, per se, as I use my air quotes. When you're flying into Reagan, you feel like you're on kind of a roller coaster. You feel like you're in a movie because there's a lot of sharp angles. You're twisting along the Potomac. You can look down and you can see Washington, D.C. It's just, at least in my experience flying, it's unlike landing anywhere else in the country. It's not just a straight shot, land at the airport, and then you're done. There's a lot of twists and turns because it's just a narrow airspace. And then, for regular people like us, I don't know that there's Black Hawk helicopters doing training sessions as well that could collide midair with some of these planes that are coming in at, 200, 300, 400 miles an hour. That is a recipe for disaster. But I am glad to see that the government is admitting fault in all this as well. Now, speaking of issues when it comes to travel, this story from the roads yesterday here in Kansas City. Police are searching for a suspect who shot at a car in road rage on 435. So the road rage incident took place yesterday morning between 7:05 a.m. and 7:15 a.m. What were we doing yesterday at that time? Were we pissing somebody off? I'll go back and look at the rundown. Anyway, it started out at K10 and K7 in Lenexa. The suspected vehicle, a white 2017 or 2018 Chevy Malibu, was then seen driving eastbound on the 435 just west of Corvera. where its occupants began shooting at a victim on the highway. Overland Park police said there were 2 people inside the Malibu. The driver was described as being a black male. At this time, the investigations are still ongoing, and the Overland Park Criminal Investigation Division wants your help. Tips hotline 816-474-8477.
Oddly enough, we were talking to Tom Whitaker at the Board of Police Commissioners yesterday at that time.
We were literally talking about crime in Kansas City
Yeah.
with the Board of Police Commissioners president, Tom Whitaker. So I don't know. Maybe some criminals driving out at K10 and K7 gets pissed off at Tom and suddenly he's in a road rage situation. I've never had a road rage situation in my life. I mean, I flipped a couple of middle fingers in my day, but in my almost decade here in Kansas City, I don't believe I've done it once. But I also admit I don't sit in a lot of traffic with my schedule, so I have less reasons to get upset with drivers. So maybe that's why I'm not doing it anymore.
I think this maybe originated out towards K7, K10 interchange. Is that a little
Yes.
dicey out there? Sometimes if
Yes.
you're coming north and south trying to get down on the east-west.
Yes, that's a great point, John. You're right. It is tight getting onto K10 or K7 at that interchange. You're actually spot on with that. So I could see that being a problem for some people. Not getting let on, trying to get squeezed off, whatever it might be. But they are still looking for the people involved in that road rage incident yesterday in Johnson County. Coming up next here on KCMO Talk Radio, we have some new information as to why Rob Reiner's son was at the Conan O'Brien Christmas party. We'll tell you next.
KCMO. From Lenexa to Lee Summit, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
We've got some new information here on why Nick Reiner was at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party on Saturday night. And that was the party that Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, took their 32-year-old son, Nick, to. And it's after that party that Nick is alleged to have killed both of his parents. So the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Rob and Michelle asked Conan O'Brien whether their son Nick could tag along with them to the holiday bash. And the reason is tragic. I mean, these are two parents, regardless of what you think of Rob Reiner's politics, and it really, I mean, it's so irrelevant to the story. It's becoming more evident that Rob and Michelle, like the vast majority of parents, 99% of parents, care deeply about their son and wanted him to be well and get better and do well. The outlet alleged that Nick's often extreme and stressful behavior had escalated and grown degrees even more concerning in recent weeks. Because of this, the stars were reluctant to leave him alone in their guest house in Brentwood, in their house in Los Angeles. He had been living in the guest house under watchful supervision. While at the party, Nick reportedly made other guests uncomfortable with three bizarre questions: people's first name, their last name, and whether or not they were famous. These questions led to an awkward moment with comedian Bill Hader, leading Nick to storm off. The outlet claimed that Rob confronted his son over his asocial and unsettling behavior before apologizing to Conan O'Brien and prematurely exiting the party. The next day, Rob and his wife are found slain in their home, and Nick gets arrested. Their last night was at Conan O'Brien's holiday party, tagging along with their son because they didn't want him to probably hurt himself in their guest house. Think about that. That is relatable for any parent. We know there are millions of parents around the country who are dealing with mental health issues with their kids. I mean, I was, at my barber yesterday, and one of the other guys wasn't there that cuts hair. I said, "Where is he?" And he's got a teenage girl who's going through a lot right now. This is relatable for anybody of any background, any race, any religion, any, socioeconomic level. It doesn't matter. It's a relatable topic, and it goes to show you, no matter how much money and fame and fortune you have, many of these people are dealing with the same things with their kids. The difference is Nick Reiner's 32 years old. He's a grown man. He had been to rehab dozens of times, and he was still struggling mightily with his mental health. And his parents cared so much about him that they brought him. I mean, think about that. Conan O'Brien's, going to be a lot of famous people there, okay? Going to be a lot of Hollywood stars at Conan O'Brien's party. And the Reiners are like, "Hey, can our son just tag along because we're worried for him? We don't want him to hurt himself." And then he ends up allegedly killing his own parents. It's just absolutely tragic. And it goes to show you that, you know what, as much as Rob Reiner, we know him from his writing and his movie stardom and his directing and everything else, in the end, he was a parent struggling to figure out what to do with his own child. And it may have ultimately also cost him his life. Just terrible. Now, on the speaking of, obviously, mental health issues, and we know that Nick Reiner also was addicted to drugs. Now, whether or not he was actively using, we don't know in recent days and recent weeks, but we know it was a problem for him as well. The President of the United States today is expected to make marijuana a Schedule III drug and take it down from a Schedule I drug. So this is something we touched on yesterday at the end of the show when it started to come out. But now, Charlie Gasparino, our buddy on Fox Business, he reported last night that his pot industry sources. Would you think of Charlie as having pot industry sources? I guess I could see it.
As a student of the Mizzou, might have some resources that go back.
Going back 40 years to his days in
He may know a
Columbia.
guy.
So Charlie Gasparino says here his pot industry sources say that President Trump is expected to reschedule marijuana tomorrow, meaning today, at 1:30 Eastern Time, taking it from a Schedule 1 controlled substance like heroin to a Schedule 3 like anabolic steroids, meaning the U.S. banking system will be able to finance vast parts of marijuana and the industry. So this has been rumored for the last couple of days. It looks like it's going to happen today. I was talking to somebody. Listen, I understand, and we did some calls on this late in the show yesterday, and there are people who are vehemently against this. To be fully transparent, I'm not a pot smoker. I'm a Kansas resident. It's obviously not legal here. If it was, I would not be going to pot stores. So this is not about like what I want to see happen. But I admit the issue of marijuana is one that I've struggled with because I don't believe it's, generally speaking, good for society. But I admit I feel like a hypocrite saying that when I will go out to dinner and have a couple of drinks. Probably one these days because out of principle, I'm sick of paying $17 for a stupid drink. But you get the point. I admit that I sometimes feel like a hypocrite when I say that. But someone yesterday who is a big proponent of this, they're conservative, but they're a big proponent of President Trump rescheduling. He goes, and he says to me yesterday, he goes, you know who's most fearful of this? Because part of the reason that you reschedule from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 is not just because of the banking, but also because you can now do more research as to the pros and cons of marijuana and what it might mean for individuals. He said the group that's going to be most dead set against this is Big Pharma. And I was like, hadn't thought about that. Tell me more. He said if Big Pharma opens up the floodgates and allows marijuana to now be a substitute for some things that people are dealing with, instead of whatever cockamamie pills they're trying to push on people, they are going to get hosed. They are going to lose billions of dollars. And I was like, I hadn't thought of that. He said if the research starts showing that marijuana can be beneficial for certain health conditions and that you don't need some pill being pushed by Big Pharma's in a world of hurt. And I was like, well, Big Pharma being in a world of hurt, that's appealing to me. Tell me, no, I've heard enough. I've heard enough. I mean, that's a good enough sales pitch for me right now as far as I'm concerned. And I hadn't thought about that angle. So when he was giving me this pitch yesterday, I thought, you know what? I'm in. It doesn't mean that marijuana should be legal. It doesn't mean the federal government's going to legalize it. But if it allows the FDA to do more research into the pros and cons and it potentially hurts Big Pharma, I'm all in, John.
You know, in the movie A Christmas Story, we have the triple dog dare confrontation where we skip a stage, right? And so we're going from Schedule 1 to 3, and I thought, hey, triple dog dare here. What happened to 2? So I'm looking up 2, and 2 is things like fentanyl and oxycodone and morphine, and these things are, I guess, regulated through Big Pharma. So we skip 2 to avoid them or to get around them, I guess, to drop it down to 1, right?
Drop it to 3, yes.
Yeah, 3,
yes.
from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
We skip 2 because Pharma's still got a hand in it, it looks like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I was suddenly much more intrigued by this when I heard that pitch yesterday. So, we'll see what comes out today if the White House ultimately does do this, as Charlie Gasparino is reporting and predicting. And, I hope that Trump explains why he's doing this. Like, I hope the teleprompter that he was using last night for the speech is fully loaded again today. And he talks about this in a coherent, specific way that explains why this is beneficial for everybody and why this is not about wanting to legalize marijuana across the country, but more about, hey, here's the importance of this, here's what we want to research, and here's why this can be valuable. So I'm now suddenly all ears on this, and let's see how it plays out. The 6 at 6 top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour we'll get to next on 95.7 FM, KCMO.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from New York City, we'll get reaction to President Trump's speech from the White House last night. Coming up at 2 o'clock on 95.7 KCMO.
6:49, it is great to have you here on KCMO. You heard President Trump last night right here on 95.7 FM. His address to the nation came at 8 p.m. Central Time. We carried it, and I'm proud to say the station that claims it's the news station of Kansas City was not carrying a presidential address to the nation. Go figure.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Well, a Jackson County deputy suffered serious injuries after being struck by a vehicle while working a separate crash on Wednesday night. The incident was south of Interstate 70, according to Missouri State Highway Patrol, and they said 2 deputies were already on the scene investigating an unrelated crash when a southbound vehicle approaching the area struck one of the deputies who was outside of a patrol vehicle at the time. The deputy was transported to a hospital with serious injuries and is in stable condition. The driver of the vehicle was not injured. Missouri State Highway Patrol said the driver remained at the scene and is cooperating with law enforcement. It's unknown how fast the vehicle was traveling at the time of the crash, as the investigation remains preliminary and is ongoing. So, I mean, scary incident last night, a near tragedy, but it looks like, thank goodness, the officer is going to be okay.
Number 2.
Well, let's go to the plaza, where redevelopments took a significant step forward yesterday. So earlier this fall, the group that is now working on the plaza redevelopment project, Gillen Property Group, submitted its general guide to develop on the plaza. The guide, also known as the Master Plan Development, gave a general idea of the vision developers are working towards. On Wednesday, the Kansas City, Missouri Planning Commission unanimously approved the master plan. The item still requires approval from the Kansas City, Missouri City Council, which could take it up for review in 2026. What does that include? It sets the stage for taller buildings on the plaza. Plaza developers told the city they lowered their maximum height possibilities based on public feedback. Developers promised to match the plaza style and save artwork from current buildings. So the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, said yesterday on social media, and he will be on the show this morning at 7:30, Kansas City continues to see growth in every community, ranging from new housing developments for thousands on the east side and in the northeast to a first-in-a-century riverfront development and regeneration of the plaza, one of our great community assets. Kansas City's on a roll as we head to 2026. Stay tuned for more great progress ahead. Well, that sounds like somebody who is a fan. And we'll try to get this thing through a full council vote sometime next year. So larger, taller buildings seem like they're all but certain to come down to the Country Club Plaza.
Number 3.
Oh, the streetcar begins testing on the riverfront extension. That's right. A streetcar traveled to and from Kansas City's Berkeley riverfront yesterday for the first time in the city's history. The streetcars announced that the riverfront extension has entered the testing phase, with the plan to open up in early 2026 remaining unchanged. The extension will take passengers from the River Market neighborhood to the riverfront itself. So yesterday was the first test of that, and we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. We got the UMKC extension open, the riverfront extension expected to open sometime in early 2026, as they are right now, once again, officially in the testing phase as of yesterday. How about that? All right, we'll keep it rolling.
Number 4.
Yesterday, centrist Republicans revolted, signing a petition to force a vote on Obamacare funding. As NBC News notes here, rebelling against their leaders, 4 House Republicans yesterday signed on to a discharge petition, giving Democrats the 218 signatures needed to force a vote on a 3-year extension of the Obamacare subsidies that are set to expire for millions of people on December 31st. If the enhanced premium tax credit expires, as is expected, insurance costs could upwards of double on average for about 22 million people. The 4 Republicans who signed on yesterday morning: Brian Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania, Mike Lawler out of New York, Rob Bresnahan out of Pennsylvania, and Ryan McKenzie also out of Pennsylvania. All 4 represent competitive districts that could make or break the Republicans' narrow House majority coming up in November. So this fight is not done. We'll also ask Mark Alford about this coming up at 7:20 when he joins the show here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Number 5.
All right, let's go to this in Washington, D.C. Dan Bongino, our old friend here on KCMO Talk Radio, says he will leave the FBI as the deputy director next month. Bongino saying yesterday he was stepping down as deputy director at the FBI after a 9-month tenure. Bongino said in a social media post that he thanks President Trump for the opportunity to serve with purpose. But of course, he's out. Kash Patel, head of the FBI, praised Bongino, saying he's not only completed his mission, he has far exceeded it. We will miss him, but I'm thankful he accepted the call to serve. Our country is better and safer for it. So 1 year in, Bongino is going to leave. The expectation is he will go back to his show, but I'm not convinced that's going to be a multi-hour radio show. That's just my prediction sitting here in Kansas City. I believe he's going to go back to his podcast. I'm not sure he's going to go back to a daily 3-hour radio show. But I'm sure that Vince Colanais will have much more to say about this when he comes on the air at 11 o'clock this morning right here on KCMO. So make sure you're tuned into the Vince Show, who, of course, replaced Dan Bongino with Dan's blessing as well. These two guys are very close. So I'm sure they're going to figure it out, and it's going to be just fine.
Number 6.
Last up, well, let's tie it all back here to Kansas City. We're not going to have a white Christmas. I hate to break it to you. In fact, we may have a different kind of Christmas. We may break the record for Kansas City. The record for the hottest temperature in Kansas City on Christmas was 67 degrees, set in 1922. We almost broke that record in 2019 when it was 66. Right now, we are projected to have a high of 64 degrees on Christmas. I remember that 2019 Christmas because we had all our family here, both sides. Claire was just 1 year old at the time. And I remember being outside, and it was fantastic, that 2019 Christmas. Well, it's going to be pretty similar this year, looking at a high of 64 degrees. Go figure. There's your 6 at 6. Mark Alford, Quinton Lucas next hour. And I have a new theory on Travis Kelce I want to share next. All right, you guys tell me if I'm just crazy at 7:05 on a Thursday. We've got a busy hour ahead. Mark Alford is going to be here in 15 minutes. Mayor Lucas in his usual 7:30 slot as well. Do not miss that. Coming up on KCMO. We were talking about this yesterday off the air with Keatsman. My show ends, and usually we banter for a couple of minutes. And Kevin brought up, as he always does, a really interesting idea of saying, hey, would Travis Kelce announce his retirement next week? And then Thursday night, Christmas night, becomes kind of the Travis Kelce farewell moment at Arrowhead Stadium. Is that possible? I'm like, well, they could certainly use the help on the ticket sales, because I guarantee you're going to be able to get into that game, for $25. Now, it's going to be nice on Christmas, so maybe that actually helps out the ticket sales. If you got a 65-degree day in Kansas City, people may say, you know what? I just got to get away from the family or something. I'm going to the game. Got a tailgate for 4 hours, too. It's a Thursday nighter. Let the kids open the gifts and sayonara. See you later. So maybe that'll help the ticket prices a little bit. But then I'm thinking about this yesterday, and I'm connecting some of these dots. And I'm like, okay, the game's on Amazon between the Chiefs and the Broncos next Thursday night. There's no juice for this game at all, right? Broncos have the whole thing locked up in the AFC West. Chiefs are out of the playoffs. This is not what anybody expected when the schedule came out. The game's on Amazon. The Kelce brothers have their $100 million podcast deal with Amazon. Is it possible that Travis would do what Kevin suggested and announce he's retiring next week ahead of the Christmas game, which throws Amazon, his podcast partners, a major bone and gives them a lift and gives them some juice for this game on Thursday night? You guys tell me. Don't worry, your jobs aren't on the line here with any of this. If you think I'm totally out of line and gone totally crazy, just tell me.
I don't think Travis cares about Amazon.
Okay. All right.
That's my theory.
But do you think he is done?
I think he's done, but I don't think he's going to make the decision until a couple weeks after the season. I think he's going to sit on it for a little bit.
But do you think he knows he's done right now?
See, he'll feel like he's done right now because he's in the midst of a terrible ending to a season. But then after he thinks about it for a couple weeks, maybe a month, then Taylor's like, you can't come out of retirement. If you were going to play, you got to play one more season, and then he'll come back for another season.
Oh, you are optimistic. John, you think he's done, man?
No, I'm cynical. I think he's already decided.
I agree.
And I feel like right now they're kind of skirting around trying to build up the event because a little bit's maybe leaked out. I don't know if it's leaked out, but it's just, under suspicion.
Yeah, well, he did this to himself yesterday when the way he talked about Patrick Mahomes' injury and his return next year, he talked about the Chiefs, not us, the team. Here was Travis Kelce on the New Heights podcast.
He's a fearless warrior when it comes to this football thing, and he's going to make sure that he comes back stronger than ever. And hopefully the Chiefs can get him back as soon as possible. I know right now it's kind of right around that week one or the beginning of the season next year. So I know he's going to be doing everything he can to get back out on that field for the Chiefs as soon as possible, man.
Sounds like an analyst. Yeah, got to get it back out there for the Chiefs. Can't wait to get back with Pat next year. We're going to run it back, baby, and we need him. The team needs him. The Chiefs? What are you analyzing on Sunday Night Football now, John?
Jason has had more to say about Travis retiring than Travis.
Yeah.
Actually. And so I felt like that was kind of like building up. He's like, oh, you don't make a decision now. It's all emotional, which is true. And I bet Kendall would say the same thing if we ask him. You don't want to make any decision right now. So that's why I think he already has.
I agree.
Maybe even going into last year.
I totally agree with you there. No doubt about it. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Candace Mundo. No, you know. You didn't put me in the bucket with that wacko conspiracy theorist who's getting absolutely cooked this week after her meeting with Erica Kirk. You didn't do that to me on the text line, did you? 1450? No. Oh, man, I've been insulted, but that's just right up
Now,
there.
the decision that he already made it, that's not a conspiracy. But when you put all that Amazon stuff together there, I was like, okay. It makes sense.
If that's my grand conspiracy theory of the year, then that's trust me, that's just scratching the surface of conspiracy theories these days. Tucker Carlson said last night we were going to be at war with Venezuela by the end of Trump's speech. How did that work out? Okay? I mean, Candace is losing all her marbles. And by the way, her credibility is getting shot because she meets with Erica Kirk this week and she goes, it went really well. I'll have more to say later. And her own fans are like, sell out, loser. This is what happens. This is what happens when you try to feed the beast. Okay? I mean, and she's claiming it's a bunch of like Russian bots who are now going after her. It's like, no, these are your peeps, man. You built up this monster. Now you got to own it.
Oh, and her goalposts have moved. It's been interesting how many goalposts she's had. It was Bibi Netanyahu early on.
You couldn't fit all those goalposts in Arrowhead the way she's operating. Jeez. Now, as for Patrick, the Chiefs said yesterday that they expect this to be 9 months, which would be right in the ballpark of being back for the start of next season. But they did add that it could be a month or two less, or it could be a month or two more. That is according to their vice president of sports medicine and performance, Rick Burkholder. So we don't really know. Could he be ready for the start of next season? Absolutely. We saw Joe Burrow come back from the ACL tear in 9 months. Joe Burrow was also like 22 years old. Patrick Mahomes is 30. It's different. Could he also be back around Thanksgiving? Yeah, I mean, the season could be lost by the time he gets back. We just don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Now, something else I saw yesterday tying sports to the healthcare conversation. Phillip Rivers, he's a 44-year-old grandpa. He's back in the mix, right? He's playing quarterback now for the Indianapolis Colts, who are trying to hang on to a playoff spot. Comes out of retirement after a few years. He signs a 1-year deal with Indianapolis this month, veterans minimum of $1.255 million. When prorated over 4 games, he'll make $278,000. Not bad pay. But the New York Post writes here, one of the more notable aspects of his return is the resetting of his NFL health insurance clock. They say here the league-supplied benefit was slated to go away next month, as it was to expire 5 years after his last snap in the NFL. But now Phillip Rivers will get 5 more years should he re-retire after this season. As they know, that's a big deal for a man with 10 kids. Yes, he does have 10 kids. And it's all with the same woman, right? Like he's not like 10 kids with 9 women like Tyreek Hill. He's just got 10 kids with his wife.
Yep.
I mean, that's admirable.
One of them is old enough to be off the insurance because obviously she has a kid. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, true. He is a grandpa after all. So I
9
hope he's
kids
not
on the insurance plan.
I hope he doesn't have his grandkids on the insurance plan. But, listen, I understand that people need health care and insurance can be a big part of a job decision. Phillip Rivers made $240 million over his career. I don't think he's coming back for the health insurance. Call me crazy, but Phillip Rivers seems like a wholesome guy who's done it the right way, who's made $250 million. I know health insurance is expensive, but something tells me he did not come back to reset the health insurance clock.
It also reset his Hall of Fame clock.
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
He could have been in the Hall of Fame next year, potentially.
You think he's a Hall of Famer?
I think he's borderline.
I agree. I mean,
he didn't win the ring, which is tough.
I'm all about Hall of Famers being for the best of the best. And I don't think at any point Phillip Rivers was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL when he was playing. Probably top 5, 6. But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Coming up next, Mark Alford is going to be here. We'll react to President Trump's speech from last night, what he heard, and also what's going on with the, speaking of healthcare and Phillip Rivers, what's going on with the Affordable Care Act subsidies? Where does that go from here? Does the GOP have any kind of a plan? Mark Alford and then Quinton Lucas on KCMO.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Hang on to your hat. Going to be windy today. Seeing those wind gusts, they'll be up to 50 miles an hour as we get into the evening tonight. So be sure to prepare for that. We'll also dip into the low 20s by the time we get to tomorrow morning. In the meantime, Mark Alford is here. He is joining us from Washington, D.C., of course, Missouri Congressman, 4th Congressional District, and the President of the United States addressing the nation last night. You heard it right here in the 8 o'clock hour on KCMO Talk Radio. Congressman, good morning. What do you think was the strongest part to the President's speech last night?
Hey, good morning. Merry Christmas, everyone. We're coming to you from the swamp, my office here at 328 Cannon. Hey, I was excited to hear the speech last night, only about 20 minutes, which is for the President of the United States to stay on message, stay on point. He's just not like following the teleprompter, much like I did not at Fox 4. But this was an optimistic speech about the future of America. We have been saying this for more than 6 months now. I know members of Congress and the Republican conference have that this economy is going to take off in the first and second quarter, largely in part to the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. President pointed out a lot of that. I think this money that he's giving to all service members, including reserve units, the 442nd out of Whiteman Air Force Base, the 1776 money that he is going to be giving out of this tariff money that we've collected more than $400 billion so far, and that's growing, is an exciting thing that he's doing for our service members to give them a little boost of confidence. We are improving their pay by 3.8% overall, but it's nice to have a little extra money this time of year.
You know, I did so. The Warrior dividends, what you're talking about there, of course, the men and women in the military getting $1,776 in a check. It will not be taxed by the government. But listen, I'm all about it and supporting the men and women who are serving. But, how does that work? You guys didn't approve it in Congress. I guess my question is, are we going to be in a world now where a Democrat president one day could say, you know what, these Somalians, they're real patriots. Every Somalian refugee gets $2,000. I mean, I don't know. How does that work, and how does this come to be?
Well, Pete, that's a very good question. Something I was wondering myself. I am on the Appropriations Committee. We are going to have to make sure that is coming out of appropriated funds and not just some slush fund that the executive branch has in the future. We ran into the same thing with the Commodity Credit Corporation under Secretary Vilsack for the USDA. He used that fund pretty much just to fund pet projects that he liked that were woke projects. Now that fund is being used to help actual farmers who were trying to mitigate some of their losses. And when you hear about the money going to the farmers that are going to help offset some of their losses, mainly because of the higher input costs from the Biden administration, that's what it's coming out of. And that account has to be recharged, so to speak, by the appropriations process. So that is a very good question that deserves a very good answer, for which I have none today. But our appropriations members are meeting together today, and we intend to ask that question.
Okay, so to be clear, that was the first time anybody in Congress had heard about this last night.
First I'd heard of it. It was, he had been talking about for some time of just giving everyone in America $2,000, and we did not have the money to do that. I think even if you're going to try to disperse some of this tariff revenue, we need to be paying down our debt, although that would make a very slight dent in our debt of $38 trillion, but every dollar does count. This is a much smaller number, just I think 1.2 million service members who will be getting these warrior dividends, as the president called them.
Yeah. All right. Mark Alford is here on KCMO Talk Radio. Of course, you hear his show on Saturday afternoons and then again on Sunday mornings, Mark Alford's Capital Recap, airing right here on KCMO. So how about health insurance, health care? That obviously was a topic the president talked about last night. I guess you had a handful of Republicans yesterday join the Democrats to force a vote on the extension of the Obamacare subsidies. This thing is been a mess for a while, obviously. It doesn't look like it's getting any better. So what's going on with these Obamacare subsidies and votes coming up and things like that?
Yeah, Pete, thanks for the question. Yeah, we had 4 members cross over and vote for the Democrats on this. Basically, the first Republicans in 15 so years that have really sided with the Democrats on supporting Obamacare. Look, Obamacare was broken from the beginning. It was designed by the Democrats to fail so that we could get universal health care. These subsidies that are going to a very small portion of our citizenry, about 7%, they're propping up this failing system. And there's a lot of waste and abuse and fraud in this. We just had a GAO report that came out that talked about it. $21 billion in subsidies were paid out with no evidence of tax reconciliation for 2023, which means about 32% of all subsidies paid to enrollees with Social Security numbers had no confirmations of repayment. So these were fake Social Security numbers, or Social Security numbers for even for dead people, that they were paying these subsidies to the insurance companies. And we're saying enough is enough. We've got to bring down health care costs for everyone. And that's what the bill did that we passed yesterday. There's cost-sharing reductions. This is going to reduce by 11% on average premiums for everyone in America, not just those who, about 24 million Americans, 22 to 24 million Americans, who are going to see their increases rise because of the Democrat Congress put into play the expiration of these COVID-era subsidies.
Mark Alford on KCMO. The Capitol Recap airing Saturday at 1 p.m., Sunday morning at 8:30. We always appreciate the time there. Congressman Alford, thank you so much for being here on a busy news day.
Hey, a quick plug for Mark Alford's Capitol Recap. Our special guest is Jody Arrington, who's the chair of the Budget Committee. You want to know how we got into $38 trillion worth of debt and how we get out of that? Jody has some answers. Good friend of mine from Texas, and it's going to be a great show.
We'll be listening Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m., Sunday morning, 8:30. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Mayor Lucas is coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Looks like they're going to go ahead with these much taller buildings on the plaza. What does that mean? What does that look like? Also, how much money should be spent on KCPD? Quinton Lucas is coming up next, and we'll get to Ask Mundo Anything. Anything you want to ask, we'll do at 8:45 this morning, and then we got those Chicago Styx tickets at 8:15.
from Leawood to Liberty. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, we are trending towards the end of the year, but there's a lot going on. Mayor Quinton Lucas joining us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And yesterday, some big news came out, and it's something that will have to get approved by the council sometime maybe in 2026. But Planning Commission saying, hey, you know what? Let's let these taller buildings go down on the plaza, and that's where we'll start with the mayor of Kansas City. All right, Mr. Mayor, you a fan of this, and do you want to see your city council approve this coming up next year?
Of course, I'm a fan of growth in Kansas City on the Country Club Plaza, and I not only will ask the city council to approve it, I believe it'll be approved fairly quickly in one of our first meetings of the new year. Kansas City is a place where a lot of folks are looking to do very big-time development. And don't believe the naysayers. We approved a $500 million project just last week that related to multifamily housing, new hotel space, entertainment. That was at 8th and Grand downtown Kansas City. You're going to see this project move forward. I think the incentive side of the coin gets done fairly soon as well. And I think we're going to continue to attract new businesses to what Mayor Barnes years ago coined the River Crown Plaza Corridor. We have streetcar testing that's going to the riverfront, outstanding development near CPKC Stadium. This is going to end up being, during my tenure, 8 great years, and I give my predecessor good credit too, of an incredible resurgence of the core of our city, and I think a lot of businesses are getting it. So proud of the City Planning Commission that I have the fortune of appointing. Look forward to the Port Authority's work ahead, hopefully in the days ahead. And then more than anything, we'll just keep the development train moving here in KC.
So how tall are we looking at now for what these buildings could be down there on the plaza?
You know, I wish they never tell me stories anymore. And I know you'll probably have some builders who listen so they can say it better. 200 feet, a little bit above 200 feet is what you get to on the east end of the plaza. As I understand it, that is somewhat equal with what you have at say, the Polsinelli building, some of the other taller buildings.
Yeah, what's the CBiz buildings, one of the bigger ones down there?
Correct. Yep, CBiz, you have the current locked-in building. Those are examples. Of course, those sit on higher ground, but it will be comparable to that. So on that west end of the plaza, for those of you who are coming from Kansas, it kind of turns up towards the traffic way. You'll see taller buildings. It kind of stair steps down a bit as you go towards Main Street, towards the Nelson Atkins and the streetcar stop. I think it will be beautiful, makes common sense, allows for more density. One of the greatest, most important parts of a safe environment is one that is active and vibrant. And so I think we are going to be able to see that. It's going to be great for Kansas City and this entire region to have a very active, exciting, engaging plaza.
So take me through, the incentive side of what's going on here with the plaza in particular. I know there's been a little bit of, shall we say, folks being upset with this. I know the Kansas City Public Schools are questioning some of the incentives that Port KC has now given out for some work being done on the plaza. The city also has its own incentive arm, of course, as well. And I know that you've tried to be cautious in using these in a smart and effective way and not just giving away the farm, so to speak. But what's your read on just, I never understand this Port KC and what exactly it is they do outside of basically compete with the city to try to give away incentives. So is that relationship fracturing to some degree?
Not at all. Not at all. That board is appointed by the mayor of Kansas City. I have great confidence in their CEO. I have great confidence, of course, in all the board members. And so I think that it is a strong board. They don't compete with Kansas City. They compete with the world, right? There are real substantial conversations right now on how we can attract and retain businesses. There's news about perhaps a plaza area tenant right now and some of the work they do. Port KC, I think, makes us very competitive in terms of what we can do to make sure that Kansas City is dynamic and vibrant. Last week, after the school district sent its note, I convened a meeting with the head of the Port Authority, the head of Kansas City Public Schools, and the Country Club Plaza developers. And I think it was a strong one that narrowed down the issues, narrowed it down to about 3 places of disagreement. I think that we will be able to resolve that in the days ahead, and I think we'll continue to see the development train moving in Kansas City. It is important that we have good balance. It's important that we're responsible to the taxpayers, but it's also important that we grow, and I think Port's an important part of that.
But if the city's already in the incentive business, regardless of what anyone thinks of that, why is there a separate agency that is unaccountable to the voters needed as well?
Ultimately, I would argue the agency is accountable to the voters. They're accountable to the mayor of Kansas City. And so if you disagree strongly with the path that's taken on incentives that come from the Port Authority, you can always vote for a Mark Funkhauser-type mayor who says, I hate all incentives, I hate all incentive agencies, and I'm going to replace all the boards with a bunch of Dr. No's. That is absolutely a possibility that you have. I would submit to you that I think we had an element of that in Kansas City in 2007 and 2011 during the financial crisis, which was the worst possible time to have that. That was the time, for those who remember, that Kansas City lost the MLS soccer stadium where they built that up by the Speedway. I think Jackson County had elements of that with the just finished tenure of Frank White Jr. I don't think that's better for a community. Is better balance important? Sure. Do you need to make sure people meet? Sure. That's why I was talking to Kansas City Public Schools. But I think that's how you do it best. And, and look, I follow some of the people on social media, too, who talk about Port as a big, evil, mysterious agency. They have public meetings like everybody else. They have all the same steps. And frankly, when I look at some of what city council does, both in my city and others, by the way, right? You have rich suburbs that are giving huge incentives. I mean, I think accountability in the tax giveaway realm is something that all of us could probably use a little bit more of. And Kansas City has more of it than any other jurisdiction.
What incentives can they do or do they do that a city council could not do?
Theirs can run just a little bit longer. I mean, they do property tax abatements. They can do a few other things, improvement districts, all that sort of work. So they're fairly similar to what a city can do. The reason probably that you hear people say, but what about accountability, is that, for city council votes, everybody gets excited. They show up, they make signs, they say to heck with it, and they threaten elected officials, right? And by the way, that's our job. We appreciate people making that noise. Port Authority has a meeting on a Monday afternoon in a boardroom, which is public, by the way, but that is just less covered. And I think that is something that, I think makes a difference to a set of people. I would argue that, frankly, that makes the Port Authority no different than what's happening at the Leawood City Council, North Kansas City City Council, any of the others, where there are lots of things happening all the time. There are very real incentives being passed that don't get the same light of day. I'm not jealous of it. I think it's part of, if you want to be the mayor that gets the interview on Pete Mundo every week, got to be the one who takes the public flack with it. But I don't think that in any way our incentive agencies aren't following the rules as set up under Missouri law.
All right. Well, the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, is here on KCMO. You bring up incentives. There is a highly anticipated meeting with the LCC on the Kansas side of the state line coming up on Monday. We all know we're sitting up against this deadline of these teams possibly deciding they want to move to the other side of the state line. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much concern do you have on what's to come in that meeting on Monday in Kansas?
I was about to just give you a politician answer and kind of bluff through it. I mean, look, of course I have concern. The thing that would make me not concerned at all is if there was a deal to be signed today, and then I could get it at City Council, we vote yes, and this whole thing is over. I mean, I think that, it will come down to some financial realities for the teams. I think one thing that I do reject pretty strongly, there are some both on the radio dial and who find their way that think that this has anything to do with what community they wish to be in, the nature of the community, where they are now, trend lines. It doesn't. I think it largely has to do with where do the teams think that they're able to build the greatest value that they can put back either into the team or whatever other things they want to put value in. And so I think Kansas City, the state of Missouri, have put together, frankly, compelling offers as to both teams. The Business Journal ran a piece about a week ago, which I thought was already news that was known, where they were kind of saying this is our first indication that the city has been talking to the Chiefs as well. We never stopped talking to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm happy that we have an update in the Jackson County Executive's office because I think that suggests a very competent path to getting things done. And I think Kansas City, if you look at a few things, can prove how efficient it is. I'll even look to the plaza. Right? On the Country Club Plaza issue, you have a several $100 million project, right? You have huge public discourse around it. And in the course of really just a few weeks, Pete, We've gotten that through the approval phase, and you're going to see the incentives approved fairly quickly, too. City Council has shown its commitment to getting things moved. The aforementioned Port Authority is going to be part of it. I think Kansas City is easy to do business. I think Kansas City makes the most sense for both of those teams. And so, well, I don't know what the heck's going to happen at this LCC, and I don't think anyone in the state of Kansas or Missouri, for that matter, actually knows what will happen. I still have great confidence in the fact that the best offers that have been put forward, the ones with people with experience in getting big projects done. Look at this women's soccer stadium on the riverfront that now has a streetcar connection and beyond. That experience is in Kansas City, Mo, and I think that's going to make a difference.
All right. Last thing then, Mr. Mayor, I do want to touch on this. KCPD, of course, you're going through the budget process right now. There was a pretty big ask of a 20% increase there. Even those of us who, fully support law enforcement might be saying, hey, that's a pretty big hike in this climate right now. I know a lot of that is fixed costs, pensions, 27th pay period, things of that nature. You on board with that? And what do you think it means for policing in Kansas City in 26?
No, I'm not on board with that. I mean, I think that when the city is forecasting a $100 million revenue shortfall, and don't get me wrong, the weeks ahead, I've dug into the budget because I believe in great fiscal responsibility. I think we have it. And right now in Kansas City government, for example, we are $50 million above our fund balance target, meaning that we are performing very well in being fiscally responsible. All that being said, part of how you stay fiscally responsible is you don't spend like drunken sailors. Kansas City Police Department and their progress is vital to us, and I have appreciated not just the hiring growth. I think there's been greater strength. We're seeing that in non-fatal shootings down and more. I'd like to think, frankly, myself, the Board of Police Commissioners who had a part of all of that trajectory, and certainly the budgets that we've introduced have as well. But in recent years, we've seen a 12% increase that helped us hire a lot more officers. Another year, I think last year, we saw about an 8% increase. Those are robust at a time in government where you're freezing other departments. A 20% increase looks, I think like something I don't know if the city can handle in sheer cost. And so, there will be real negotiation on it. We will make sure the police, particularly our rank and file officers, are taken care of. But a 21% budget increase, I don't know who in government other than ICE has been able to actually sustain that increase. And as we know in the federal government, they don't worry about deficits. They print a lot of money. And frankly, I wish President Trump, if he'd listened to me, which he most likely won't, would shift a lot of that money to local law enforcement in America rather than instituting $30,000, $40,000 hiring bonuses for ICE folks that is actually poaching a lot of local law enforcement all around America.
All right. Last thing, yes, no. Travis Kelce, is his last game at Arrowhead coming up next Thursday on Christmas night?
I will be there on Christmas night. My prediction is yes. I have loved getting to know Travis. I think he has been an exceptional person in the history of Kansas City sports. That tight end position is tough. He is exceptional at it, but I'm at least going to go watch it, and I hope everybody takes some time out on Christmas to see him because it may be the last time we see him in a Chiefs uniform, and for that, I'm very grateful for the years he's given us.
And we're looking at about a 65-degree day on Christmas, so it could be a pretty nice day to get out there and tailgate as well. All right, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate the time. Next Thursday's Christmas. The day after that or the week after that is New Year's, so we'll talk to you on the 8th and get off 2026 on a high note. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everybody. Look forward to talk to you all again in 2026.
Sounds great. That is the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, on KCMO Talk Radio. There you go. 913-408-7957 is how you join us as we take you up till 8 o'clock. Steve, more next hour. We've got the tickets to see Chicago and Styx at 8:15 on 95.7 FM. Yeah.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from New York City, we'll get reaction to President Trump's speech from the White House last night. Coming up at 2 o'clock on 95.7 KCMO.
You going to miss, speaking of missing you going to miss Quinton Lucas next 2 weeks? It just so happens with Christmas and New Year's falling on a Thursday, we will not have the mayor back on this show until January 8th. And who knows, we may have an answer on the stadiums by then. God willing. God willing, we have an answer on the stadiums by then. Always appreciate his time on Thursday mornings. Donna is in Paola. Hello, Donna. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I caught the tail end of Quinton Lucas's comments about what he would like Trump to do if Trump would listen to him, which is to give more money to him and other Democratic mayors for their police department. My problem with that is Democratic mayors are telling their police department they can't do what ICE is doing or help them enforce the law. So why would Trump do that? That's my question.
Well, the answer is he won't, and Quinton Lucas knows that. Here's the bigger problem, and it's a great call, Donna. Thanks for bringing it up. The bigger problem is that the country, or I should say half the country, spent all of 2020 and parts of 2021 trashing law enforcement, taking one incident in Minneapolis and using it to paint all of law enforcement with this broad brush. And it destroyed law enforcement, especially in major American cities. And major American cities have not recovered from it. It's part of why they've had to now offer up big raises to retain people and attract people and drop residency requirements. They did it to themselves. And now it's like, boy, we can't hire cops and we got to pay people a lot of money, but the federal government's paying ICE a lot of money and they're giving ICE big bonuses. Everyone's got the same problem because half the country disparaged law enforcement over one thing that happened in Minneapolis, and now you're reaping what you sow. Victor, go ahead. You're in Parkville on KCMO.
Oh, thank you, Pete. You know, I usually don't agree with Mayor Q, but I do appreciate his time and that he actually does come on and talk to you. It actually does engage with you. But to piggyback on what Donna said, you know, why would Trump give money to local law enforcement when the mayors have created these sanctuary cities? The only people who are actually going to enforce federal law, federal immigration law, or however you want to put it, is ICE and federal law enforcement. That's where the money has to go. That's where the functions are going to be happening. That's where the money is going to be best used. You know, if Mayor Q would actually get these people and these other mayors would get their law enforcement to help ICE and to help the federal government get these criminals, illegal criminals, out of the country, then they'd probably get a little bit more funding. But until then, you know, you reap what you sow.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. And I'll just, I'll add this too. I mean, the reality is, and I talked to someone who was deeply entrenched in Kansas City government for many years. This person no longer is. But he goes, and he said to me last week, we were meeting, he said, major American cities got a lifeline during COVID, right? We gave all this money to all these major American cities and basically saved them from impending bankruptcy. Now, remember, Kansas City had to fight for the money because they were under 500,000 people. There was that drama between Kansas City and Jackson County and Frank White not cutting the checks and the whole thing. But I'm just speaking by and large, major American cities were facing bankruptcy, and COVID actually saved them because we just gave money to states and cities for no apparent reason. That's why we're still sitting here paying for inflation in part all these years later. And what did they do then? They all went on spending sprees like idiots. It's just, they weren't even responsible. Instead of saying, wow, I got this lifeline because of this once in a 100-year pandemic. Oh, my goodness, they saved us. Let's be smart about it. They were the opposite of smart about it. They just spent like drunken sailors, as Mayor Lucas noted earlier, or, used that phrase earlier. So now a lot of these cities are finding themselves back in the same spot. They're facing an impending financial crisis, and they don't have great plans on how to do anything about it. And as the mayor did correctly note, unlike the federal government, they can't print money. They actually have to be fiscally wise. And we'll see how Kansas City handles it, and we'll see how other major American cities handle it as well, because that will be a topic that will become a major issue in the years to come. Because in the person that I talk to who does a lot of work with other cities around the country as well, he's like, they're all facing this crisis. It's just not getting enough attention yet. Steve Moore is a former economic advisor to the President of the United States. I want to get his take on what he heard last night and what it means for the economy going forward next. All right, we'll see if we can connect with Steve Moore. He is a former economist under President Trump in his first term. Looks like we got him all hooked up here. Does a great job, and he's been someone who's been very vocally supportive of the economic policies of the President of the United States. Of course, the President addressed the nation last night, and you heard it here at 8 p.m. on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. And, of course, our competitors were doing nothing. The supposed news station in Kansas City decided that a presidential address was not news to them. Steve Moore on KCMO Talk Radio. You see him on Fox. He is actively involved as well with Unleash Prosperity. You can sign up for that daily newsletter. Steve is one of the co-founders. Steve, what did you hear last night that you liked from the President of the United States?
Well, first of all, Pete, great to be with you, and Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you before. So the big news that just came out literally 30 minutes ago was the inflation report, and that was an amazing report. We came in way below expectations. The inflation rate is now running at about 2.6%, which is still too high. We want it down to 2%. But remember, the average inflation rate for the entire 4 years that Biden was president was 5%. So that, we've cut inflation almost in half. And so this is very good news for consumers. It means it's more likely, Pete, that the Fed will cut rates again the next time they meet in January. And it means people's incomes are rising faster than inflation is. So, people do complain about, like my wife, about the price of hamburger and beef and other, things that coffee is expensive. But the good news is things are really coming up. We're seeing real improvements in inflation and real improvements in income of Americans. So I'm feeling pretty good about things right now.
Yeah, that did just come out, and you're right. The expectations were for an increase in inflation of 3.1%. Comes in at 2.7%, so definitely a positive trend there. So what about then? You still have a lot of people. I mean, the polling shows people are just feeling the pinch right now. And listen, a lot of that's not on Trump, but it's just a reality, and people have short-term memories. So he's trying to, I think, reset the conversation for next year. How successful do you think he was at that last night?
It was a good speech. And, look, Trump has a lot to trumpet. I mean, we've got real incomes rising. The average family has seen an income increase after inflation of about $1,500 this year, which is a good, solid number. I know people may not believe that. I know, kind of people are angry about price of things, but those are just the official numbers. So affordability is actually up. It's not down. I mean, my God, what are you paying there in Kansas City for gas now?
Too much. I mean, we're at about $2.69 a gallon. I mean, listen, I'll take it over where it's been, but it's interesting. You drive 30 miles outside of Kansas City, it's down to like $2.19 or $2.10. It's crazy, but we're still at about $2.69.
Yeah, well, $2.69 is a bargain. Given most California, they're still paying $5 a gallon for gas.
Yeah, those state taxes are screwing them.
But it was the gas prices never fell below $3 a gallon under Biden. So $2.69 is a good number. I mean, by the way, there are 3 states where the price of gas is now below $2 a gallon. So it's an example of some of the things that are much more affordable. I think Trump is let's not forget the big tax cut. And people come up to me, Pete, and they'll say, they'll see me on Fox or something, and they'll say, I don't see the Trump tax cut. It's not my. And I said, look, for most people listening to the show, they're going to start feeling the effects of that in January, in 2 weeks, because they're withholding in their, on their IRS forms. When you get your paycheck, there will be less money withheld from your paycheck. So people are in for a nice boost in their paycheck starting next year. And then we've got how about this one? 93% reduction in illegal crossings across the border. I mean, 93% reduction in 1 year?
Yeah, that's been by far to me the biggest success, no doubt about it, is the handling of the border. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, I mean it's an incredible statistic, and then you've got so many other things. How about this? That the average family, their 401k plan over this year, because I bet the vast majority of the people listening to this show have a 401k plan or a retirement plan. Those are up in value by $23,000 this year. So that's like a little extra gift in your in your Christmas stocking there. So I feel really good about the economy. I feel really good about 2026.
Steve Moore, Unleash Prosperity co-founder. You see him on Fox News. He's a former economic advisor to the president during his first term in office. So then, you look at this tariff issue, Steve. I know you've been a little queasy on it, but I mean, some may say that it has kept inflation maybe a little higher than it otherwise would need to be. Where are you at on that? Did I lose you, Steve?
Hey, Pete, I just lost you there for a second. You were asking me about the
tariff. Oh, yeah, the tariffs. Just how you're feeling about. I know you've been a little queasy on them, but how you feeling about them right now?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you there for a minute. Look, there's no question. I'm not a big tariff guy, and it's really funny when I go to see President Trump, now and then, and he said, "There's Steve Moore. He's a great economist, but he doesn't like my tariffs." I'm not a big fan of your tariffs, but the truth is that. But I always tell him, Mr. President, I don't like your tariffs, but I love the trade deals you're getting, and that's another thing people have forgotten about. We've gotten great deals from China, from Korea, from Japan, from the Europeans. We're leveling the playing field. Trump was right. Look, I'm a free trade guy. I knew Milton Friedman. He was the great economist who was the big advocate of free trade. But why not level the playing field and force these other countries to lower their tariffs, because we're being discriminated against. We're being taken advantage of. What did Trump say? That they're eating our lunch, and so now we're getting better deals with these countries. Now, I'll give you an example though of how tariffs can raise prices. When Trump came in, he put a 50% tariff on a lot of imported coffee beans from places like Brazil and Colombia. And why? Why do we import coffee beans from Brazil and Colombia? Because they make really good coffee beans there. Well, guess what happened to the price of coffee?
Yeah. Went up.
It went up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now Trump has eased that tariff, and now we're seeing those come down. So, tariffs are a tax, and I don't like them. And we got a big Supreme Court decision that will come down probably sometime in the next month or so on whether these tariffs were constitutional. I think Trump will lose in court on that, and that's going to cause a bit of turmoil with respect to where we go with these tariffs from here.
So you've highlighted a lot of the big wins. I understand you can get a poll to show whatever you want, but there has been polling that just suggests people do not feel like the economy is where they want it to be. Right. Is there something that you think can be done or should be done, or is it just waiting until some of the big wins, as you noted, kick in next year and people say, okay, I'm starting to feel better, and you believe that time is actually going to solve a lot of this?
I definitely do. I think 2026 is going to be a monster year for the U.S. economy, with a lot of job growth, a lot of wage growth, a lot of new businesses. The artificial intelligence, robotics revolution is coming, and that's going to sharply reduce costs. So inflation is going to come way down. Yet, it's not just the public opinion data. It's the fact that Republicans have gotten creamed in every election that's happened in the last few months. So, I live in Virginia. In Virginia, we got the Republicans got creamed. In New York, they got creamed. In New Jersey, they got creamed. There's a special election in Florida. Republicans lost. So, voters are not in a good mood right now. Mm-hmm. And so Republicans need to figure out how they can message this better. Now, one thing that is going on right now as we speak, one of the last orders of business for Congress is to fix the healthcare system. And Democrats want to just keep with Obamacare, and those subsidies have so driven up the healthcare costs. In fact, if you want to look at where health costs are really rising and inflation is so high, it's in the healthcare. And so we've got to fix the healthcare system. Democrats, by the way, did you see like $150 billion of fraud in Medicaid and Obamacare? $150 billion, not million, folks, 100. And the Democrats voted yesterday just to keep the system running as it is, because it's running so well, right? I mean, they don't care about $150 billion of fraud. Add to that another $100 billion of fraud in the food stamp program. Mm-hmm. These people, the states can't even determine that the people they're giving food stamps to have a legitimate Social Security number.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. All right, I do want to ask you last thing, Steve Moore, about the housing issue. That is a big concern, especially for younger voters who, may have given the GOP a chance and typically don't vote Republican, but they're still frustrated. They want to get into that first-time home, and they just can't. The president seems to believe that cutting rates is the answer. I'm not convinced it is, because then you're just going to get more demand, and that'll increase the price of these homes. So what's the answer for first-time home buyers to try to get them into a house, which is part of the American dream?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, we could talk about that for a half hour, and I know we're running out of time here, but I'll simply say this, that, well, look, housing is an asset. So when the price of a house goes up, that for people like me, my asset is going up in value, and this is equity. We have more and more equity in our house. So rising home values can be a good thing for older people, and it's a bad thing for younger people, right? Because it makes it harder to buy a house.
Yeah.
But I think one of the proposals that I've suggested to Trump is let's on the appreciation of the value of a home, and if you did that, people could, because a lot of people.
If you did, sorry, it cut out there, Steve. What was the idea? It cut out there.
Oh, sorry, we don't have the best, but to get rid of the capital gains tax on the sale of a home. And if you did that, people would sell homes, and then you would have more inventory for young people. If you've got more supply, what happens to the price, Pete?
Yeah, more supply, prices come down.
Yeah, you got your A in economics, my friend. Exactly.
Okay,
so,
well, that's a good start. I like that idea, Steve. That's good stuff. Good deal, my man. Steve Moore, economist under Trump term 1.0, Unleash Prosperity. Sign up for the newsletter today. You see him on Fox News, and I believe we are going to be carrying his weekend radio show very soon as well. So, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, my man.
You too, my friend. Have a great one. Take
All right.
care.
You bet. Steve Moore on KCMO Talk Radio. More to come on a radio show he's going to be involved with and when we plan to carry that. Okay. We have Ask Mundo Anything. Fun segment at the end of the hour. Anything you want to ask, you can ask it. 8:45 here on KCMO Talk Radio. But right now, your chance to win tickets to see Chicago and Styx at Morton Amphitheater. August 25th of next year. 7th caller, 913-408-7957. Coming up, the incompetency on this major national story. It just gets worse next. That's how I feel after talking to Steve Moore. He always inspires me. He always puts me in a good mood. Just when I'm like, I don't know. Steve's like, nope, everything's going great. You just wait to see what happens next year. All right, John, who won these Chicago and Styx tickets?
Well, Rockin' Rhonda of Raymore, as she told me her name is. She's been to see Styx and Chicago before.
Okay.
And the Windy City Tours is coming to Kansas City August 25th at the Morton Amphitheater. One of the themes I've sensed from our veteran concert goers, because these bands come around quite a bit, is they're excited to go to Morton Amphitheater as much as anything, too.
Yeah, that's a new amphitheater opening up in Riverside next year. So, very cool.
We got one more chance to win tomorrow. Coming up at 8:15.
Yeah, it would make a good Christmas gift, wouldn't it?
Indeed.
If you're squeezed here at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. 8:15 tomorrow, your last chance to win tickets to see Chicago and Styx next summer. All right. The incompetency of the people in charge of this Brown University shooter case continues to get worse. This Providence police chief, this guy Oscar Perez, he is way in over his head. And every day that he steps up to the podium, it gets worse for him. Take a listen to this guy and what he had to say yesterday. Here we are now. It's Thursday. They don't have any idea where this guy is. The investigation appears to be going nowhere. And you had the police chief yesterday reveal that 5 days after the Brown University shooting, with a killer on the loose, they haven't interviewed the student eyewitnesses. How is this possible?
Colonel, can you now explain to us 5 days later how many students were in that classroom? Sadly, 2 lost their lives, 9 others injured. Encouraged about the update today. But can you now say how many kids were in that classroom? And did the gunman come in from the back so these people never knew it was coming? Or did he come in front with full view of everybody?
And that's all part of the interviews, and actually we're cooperating with Brown to get the roster. That was a study hall, so we don't have the number. We're still getting information as far as who was there. I know Brown sent out an email to the students to notify us if they were present, and we're still getting that, so I can't give you an exact account now.
It's insane this guy still has a job. This guy, Oscar Perez, he should have been fired on Tuesday. I wouldn't trust this guy to run a lemonade stand if he had 2 assistants and pre-made lemonade. My daughters run a lemonade stand better than this guy would. They sit at the end of the driveway. They've got guys giving them $20 bills left and right for 2 cups of lemonade. This guy wouldn't even know where to find the lemonade and how to mix it. He is, oh my goodness. How are you a week into the investigation and you don't know who was in the classroom? Yeah, we're working with Brown. Hopefully they'll give us a roster. Do you know anything? What do you know? And how is the Brown president, who's making millions, not done a single darn thing to coordinate or move this thing forward? I don't care if it's technically not her job. She runs the university. How is she not on Saturday night? Here's what we know. Here's who was there. Here's who you got to talk to. This was yesterday, so it's Wednesday, when the police chief said what he just said. And you don't know who was in the classroom of this mass shooting? Holy smokes. And then you got this yesterday from Fox News. They reported yesterday that anti-Israel activists on Brown's campus demanded last year that the university take down some of the cameras on campus to protect protesters. Now the school is not answering whether or not they complied and if that played a role in the limited footage of the shooter. Because one of the big questions has been, where are all the cameras on campus? You've got an $8 billion endowment. You are one of the most prestigious universities in the world. And You don't have cameras anywhere to be like, all right, we think this is the person, and here's what he looked like, and here's what was going on. And now they won't even answer that question, John.
Well, we've got old buildings connected to new buildings, see, and so everything's not quite as simple.
Yeah.
That seems to be the explanation. Some of these cameras don't point at anything, I guess, and some of them are just focused on, they're not even focused on entryways. So when we were trying to get to the bottom, did the guy yell something? I thought, well, the students would confirm that, and at no point did we hear, and I began to wonder, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, they haven't even talked to the students.
Wow.
You got students telling people in the media, yeah, the guy was yelling Allah Akbar, but we can't even confirm that because law enforcement hasn't talked to anybody. What are they doing? It's a fair question. Now, a lot of you are saying this guy, Oscar Perez, is a DEI hire. I don't know if he is. I don't know if he isn't. I have no idea. I know this.
Doesn't matter. He's incompetent.
He's
right?
incompetent.
Yeah.
Okay? What his background is irrelevant. He is incompetent. He has no idea what he's doing. He's way in over his head. And he's a week into a mass shooting, and he hasn't talked to people who are witnesses to the mass shooting. It is just unfathomable. And I cannot believe the national media is kind of covering this, but there is no criticism whatsoever for the people involved. And ask yourself why that might be. News coming up in 2 minutes. Ask Mundo Anything, 15 minutes away on KCMO.
Hey, it's Vince Gallane's Catch My News Show at 11 o'clock after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, we do have a new update this morning. Paul Morrow, lead counterterrorism ops guy for NYPD, spoke this morning on Fox News. This was just earlier in the hour about the Brown University mass shooting. It's amazing how poorly this seemingly has been handled by local authorities and the university itself. They, as far as we know, really don't have, any idea where this guy is. You have the Providence police chief saying yesterday that they haven't even talked to the people who were in the classroom. As of yesterday, they were hoping to get that list from Brown. How is that possible? 5-6 days into the investigation and into the manhunt. That's like listen, I've watched Law and Order enough to know the first thing you do is try to find a witness and talk to him. And yes, I'm a big fan of, I was a big fan of Law and Order before it went totally woke. It got off the deep end around COVID. So we haven't watched Law and Order in quite some time. You go back to the old school ones, Elliot Stabler. I was a big SVU guy. I could watch 5 episodes of SVU and tell you, yeah, okay, we got a mass shooting at Brown. Let's find some witnesses and talk to them. And they haven't done that. It's crazy. So here's the update this morning. Fox News, Paul Morrow. Here's what he had to say.
The information about the DNA is widely out. The fact that the task force is working some DNA, there's some reporting that it's from shell casings found at the scene. What I can tell you from my sourcing is that I think quite significantly, they have live rounds. That is, rounds that were not fired, undetonated rounds. Why does that matter? Because shell casings have enclosed a detonation. That's how bullets work, which means they often destroy evidence and they're scorched. In the case of live rounds, think about what happens there on a 9mm automatic. The perpetrator has to fat finger those rounds, bullets, into a magazine, which is the sleeve that holds them, and that gets put into the handle of the gun. That's how a semi-automatic works. So you have a perpetrator handling rounds that have not been exploded that are found at the scene. It's the same thing we saw, if you recall, in Luigi Mangione. When the gun jammed, he also had a semi-automatic. He had to rack the slide to try to get it to work and clear the jam. He did, but that ejects the live rounds. Live rounds at this scene, I think, is a hopeful sign for getting usable DNA, even if he's not in the database. Remember, they can use that familial DNA technique that we saw in the Koberger case. It gets to a cousin or something, you work back from there. So I think that's a positive sign for the investigation, and I can tell you they're scraping very hard at it.
All right, that is Paul Morrow, Fox News, here earlier in the hour on this Brown University shooting. So they've got live rounds. They can use the familiar DNA technique, tracks down a cousin or something. You work it back from there. Okay, let's go. Get going there, fellas. Come on. Keep it moving. Kevin's in Overland Park. Hey, Kevin, good morning.
Hey, Pete. Hey, these press conferences have been quite the joke. Either they're very inept or they know exactly what was going on and they're trying to cover tracks or something. It's definitely one or the other, because even I think it was the AG stepped in on one while Perez was talking and basically said, hey, if you told the reporters you think you can do better, feel free. It's like, really? This is what you guys are saying to the
they're going after reporters now for asking very reasonable questions about the investigation. And you know what?
Exactly.
These reporters, they're Rhode Island guys and gals. They got a chip on their shoulder sitting there between Boston and New York. They should respond and say, you know what? We could do a better job than you clowns. They have handled this, worse than you and I would have handled it, Kevin. And I don't know about you, but I've never investigated a thing in my life outside of trying to figure out, who pooped on the floor or something with the little kids. That's all I know how to investigate.
Compare Nick Reiner, the surveillance footage of Nick Reiner, compared to this guy. They've got, video of him going to a gas station, going to a store.
Yeah.
That's already come out. It's like, okay, where's that kind of surveillance? Where did if you knew he went down certain streets, well, where did he go from there?
Keep
looking. It's like,
it's crazy.
How easy is that? We see that stuff all the time when a story like this comes out, where here's the person going to the gas station, or here's the person going into a Target or whatever.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you. Good call. That's what's driving me nuts about this. But the fact that Brown may have reduced its on-campus camera footage because last year anti-Israel protesters demanded the university remove cameras to protect the protesters. And if that turns out to be a reason that they don't have any camera footage of this guy, oh, man, that's going to be something. All right, let's go to, I just saw this story out of Massachusetts. 2 men trafficked nearly $7 million worth of benefits intended for people who cannot afford food, ripping off food stamps. SNAP fraud exposed in Massachusetts. This is, wow. 2 guys arrested yesterday, charged with 1 count of food stamp fraud and a scheme that U.S. Attorney Leah Foley said turned a program to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. Assistance through SNAP became a focal point during the most recent government shutdown, as ABC News reports here. According to federal prosecutors, the defendants operated small retail stores that, despite their limited size, inventory, and food offerings, exhibited extraordinarily high SNAP redemption volumes, far in excess of what could reasonably be supported by legitimate sales. One store's monthly SNAP redemptions exceeded $100,000 and at times even $500,000. That's a month. Investigators went undercover. They discovered the defendants had personally exchanged SNAP benefits for cash. Both stores were also allegedly observed selling liquor in exchange for SNAP benefits. The 2 individuals, Antonio Bonhor and Saul Alisame. These gentlemen, according to reports, well, gentlemen's the wrong word. These guys are Haitian migrants. And once again, their SNAP redemptions range from $100,000 to $500,000 per month in a $7 million fraud that was exposed in Massachusetts yesterday. Wow. Why would you not want to nip this stuff in the bud, whether it's Affordable Care Act fraud or SNAP fraud? This is the stuff that drives people nuts, left, right, in the middle. It's not a political thing, unless you want fraud out there, which I don't know why you would. But this is why these programs need more oversight. Both sides of the aisle politically do want to help people in need with the occasional handout when it's required, when people fall on tough times. But you've got a program that has become so big and is now spending so much money, you can't keep track of it. And you got guys running, little convenience stores in Massachusetts pulling in $7 million off the taxpayer. What a deal. Wow. All right, there you go. Speaking of food costs, we got an inflation report this morning. The good news, inflation comes in at 2.7%. That is below the expectations of 3.1%. So the night after the president gives a speech highlighting what he believes to be a lot of his wins from the first year in office, specifically on the economy, also looking ahead to 26, saying this thing's really going to start booming next year. You get a good inflation report the morning after. So that's back-to-back good news for the president and his team when it's been, let's be honest, a tough few weeks. So great news there, trending in the right direction, 2.7%, well below what the expectation was at 3.1%. Coming up, let's have fun with this. It's been a couple of weeks. Ask Mundo anything, whatever you want to ask. Total open book. Let's have some fun with it. Coming up, 913-408-7957. That's 913-408-7957. We'll do Ask Mundo Anything next.
from Gladstone to Gardner. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
8:49 on a Thursday morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. We do it every time of the week. Let's go.
It's time to Ask Mundo Anything on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, let's start it off on Ask Mundo Anything Thursday with Darlene in Independence. Darlene, what do you got for me?
Well, Pete, I just want you to know I really enjoy listening to your show. I love hearing about your families, and this segment is just perfect. So I was wondering, what are some Christmas traditions that you have started with your family? I know it's a young family, but what have you started to do with them?
That's a very good question. I appreciate the question, Darlene. Thanks for being a loyal listener. We spent the first few years with the girls, we were traveling sometimes to see families, so we were kind of bouncing around. But the last couple of years, we've been here and spent here, so we're kind of still, I would say, figuring out and building those traditions. We'll be at church on Christmas Eve. We'll do Italian dinner on Christmas Eve. We'll obviously put out the cookies for Santa on Christmas Eve and the milk, and we'll do all that. And then Christmas morning will be low-key at the house. But I would say we're still in the process of figuring out some of those, as many young families do. So outside of that, there's not like one great thing or one unique thing that we necessarily have lined up right now. But as you know, it's a work in progress, right?
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Thank you, Darlene.
Well, I hope you have a nice Christmas.
Yeah, you too. Merry Christmas, Darlene. Thanks so much for the call.
Sure, bye-bye.
Let's go to and say hello to Michael in Gladstone. Michael, go ahead. What do you got for me?
Ask Mundo Anything.
Hey, Mundo, Merry Christmas to you.
You too.
Absolutely. Last night we had an important address to the nation, and you can definitely see Trump in moments of especially familiarity. I think he did a great job in being presidential, and it's something that we definitely needed during this time and season. I would love to hear from you on a rating of 1 to 10 how you would rate his presidentiality in that moment in the address, and your overall thoughts on that. Just a quick rip on that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that, man. Merry Christmas. I give him a 7 out of 10 for last night. He stuck to the prompter. That's always welcomed. He's better when he sticks to the prompter. I thought the brevity of the speech was well done. It was 18 minutes. That's all you need. All right. That's all we needed last night. Highlight some of the wins. Say, here's what's coming. I would have liked a little more empathy, a little more, hey, listen, I know there are tens of millions of Americans who are still feeling pain right now in this economy. And here's what I'm doing to try to fix it. But I feel your pain. Now, that's not really who Trump is, right? He's a battering ram. We've been around this for 10 years now. So we understand what he does, what his style is. If I could add some of that to his style and his delivery, I think it would go up to a 9 or a 10. But overall, under 20 minutes, prime time, everybody took it. And I do think he tricked the media into something I'll talk about next hour as well. And that's how this Venezuelan war thing was kind of getting rumored yesterday. He might have gotten some of the networks to carry it when they otherwise would not have. And instead, he got basically 20 minutes to highlight some of his accomplishments in front of people who may not otherwise know what some of those accomplishments are. All right. Let's go to Libby and Waldo. Libby.
Ask Mundo Anything.
Let it rip.
Hi there, Pete. Well, I had one question. I thought, I'm not going to ask that one, but I'm curious about something. Speaking about Christmas and everything, because we are dealing with Christmas, how old were you when you remember your first Christmas, and do you remember what you got, and was there anything funny at that time?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you, Libby. The first one, so we moved from one house to another when I was 5.5, and I have very little recollection of anything in the first house being 5 years old. It's kind of some memories, but I also don't have a very good memory. I think waking up early is destroying my memory. I would say it's probably about 6. Well, you know what? No, hold on. I remember one of the earlier ones because I remember getting a Game Boy in the early 90s. And I believe that was a Christmas gift at, I want to say 5, which goes to show you how the times have changed. But I think it was probably a Christmas gift at 5 with a Game Boy. That's what it is. There you go.
Well, there you go. Okay,
Yes.
well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
To you, John, Mark, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You as
Bye-bye.
well. And I think my dad would steal the Game Boy and he'd just try to play it at night, figure the whole thing out. I think that was the purpose of the gift. Because I don't know, I just can't figure at 5 years old how I was actually playing a Game Boy, but I do remember getting it. I remember like Super Mario and stuff like that on that Game Boy in the early 90s. 913-408-7957. It's not a Tirade Tuesday. It's an Ask Mundo Anything Thursday. Let's go to All right, we're doing that one last there, John. Okay, all right, here we go. Chuck in Overland Park.
Ask Mundo Anything.
Chuck, what do you got?
Hey, Pete, really like your show. I had a question on, did you guys struggle a lot with having FanDuel be one of your sponsors? You guys seem like great guys, and gambling seems to be a plague on our society, so I was wondering how you guys dealt with that decision.
You know, thank you for the answer, Chuck. The short answer is no. Listen, here's the deal. There's no doubt that there are people who struggle with gambling addiction. It's also the fastest rising addiction in the country because it's become so prevalent. The question is, whose job is it to regulate that? Whose job is it to help people out in those moments? Because the vast majority of gamblers can do it responsibly and do it responsibly, right? Vast majority. It doesn't mean it's not a problem for some people. So it's not something that to me bothered me at all. And of course, you know, I do know as well, and we talked to FanDuel about the fact that, you know, they are actively also trying to make sure that people aren't cheating the system, aren't gaming the system, trying to help people who do ultimately struggle with these things. So it was not a struggle at all for me. We talked to them firsthand. They've been very good partners so far. And I understand that it can be a problem for some people. I'm not naive to it. The question is, if the overwhelming majority of people are doing it responsibly, is it on any of us to basically sit there and say, well, because some people can't, we're not interested in being partners with them? And that was not the case. All right, let's go to John in KC North.
Ask Mundo Anything.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, happy Christmas there, Pete, and everybody.
You too.
Keeping in that theme, are you a real tree guy or a plastic tree guy? And have a follow-up on your answer.
Well, I was a real tree guy early on. I was like saying to Kate, we got to go get the real tree. We got to go out to the farm and get it and do it and give it water. But then we got the greatest fake tree ever. Kate was a big proponent of it. I was like, I don't know. I think this tree's too expensive. It's the best looking fake tree you're ever going to see. I'm telling you, this is the greatest fake tree in the history of fake trees. And all I do is drag it out of the basement, pop it up. It looks great, and I love it.
Love it. Okay. Well, you kind of answered one of my follow-ups was going to be if you're a real tree guy, if you actually went out to the farm and cut it down or you got it off a lot. And so basically, since you got the fake tree, is it a pre-lit or do you light it? We have your own strings or
no, man, dude, yourself? it's all. Thank you, John. It's all pre-lit, brother. I pop it in, I plug it in, and I'm done. And it looks like $1 million. I'm telling you, it's a great fake tree. All right, last up.
Ask Mundo Anything.
Real quick, Tim and Olathe, go.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Independence Day, Pete. Curious what are some of the favorite drops you got preloaded there on your keyboard?
Oh, that's good. All right. My favorite national drop, I'll give you a national and a local. My favorite national drop is Al Sharpton.
Show some RESPICT.
My favorite local one is the local pastor, Funderburk, who went viral a couple of years ago for his rant against his own congregation because he wasn't getting enough money from them, and he said this.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.
All right. There you go, Tim. I got to go, brother. Ask Mundo Anything in the books. the warrior dividend. I heard it last night from the President of the United States, and I'm like, I'm all about, as I know many of you are, supporting the men and women who serve. And the President announced last night that men and women who are serving this country will get a Christmas bonus of $1,776, and it will not be taxed. That's a big deal. The announcement came down during this 18-minute speech last night, and I was a fan, but I will say there was one big question and concern that I had.
Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes.
So that was the President of the United States last night. So I'm like, all right, great. So like my initial emotional reaction is awesome. Good for them. Serving the country, families need it, Christmas time, checks are on the way. That's fantastic. But then I'm thinking to myself, how's this work? Where does the money come from? Did Congress sign off on this? And the reason I'm asking that is not because I don't want the men and women and their families who serve and sacrifice for the country to not get the check, but I'm like, okay, are we setting some kind of precedent here where a President Gavin Newsom comes in and he goes, all my Somalian friends are getting $2,000. Great patriots. Oh, we love them. In some primetime address. You're the best, especially you in Minneapolis who are ripping off the taxpayer. That doesn't sound too good, does it? We'd be going nuts here. So I asked Mark Alford about it this morning. He was on the show to react to the speech last night, and he's like, I don't know. I was like, okay. He's like, got to check on that one. It's like, well, that didn't give me a lot of confidence, to be honest, John.
I was with you there. You were saying, he guess that's first you've heard of it. I thought, there's Trump being a CEO making an announcement at the meeting, and everybody else jumps. React.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like, you check the credit card statement, and you're like, who bought what in this house? Kind of what it felt like. So I did hear from Congressman Alford, though, and we have an update for you on this. Here's where the money's coming from. Senior administration official told Defense One in an email late last night that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth directed the Pentagon to disperse $2.6 billion as a one-time basic allowance for housing supplement to all eligible service members. So basically, Congress appropriated $2.9 billion to the Department of War to supplement the basic allowance for housing entitlement within the One Big Beautiful Bill. Approximately 1.28 million active military members and 174,000 reserve military members will receive this supplement. Goes on the note here, top congressional leaders have repeatedly pushed Pentagon officials during confirmation hearings to commit to following lawmakers' guidance for more than $150 billion allocated for defense in the One Big Beautiful Reconciliation legislation. The $2.9 billion meant to subsidize the basic allowance for housing, rent, mortgage, utilities, things like that, comes as some service members have struggled to make the most of the benefit. So they're using money out of that pot, I guess, that is supposed to be for rent and mortgages for men and women who serve, to in part send this check out. Trump has rebranded what is already congressionally approved troop housing subsidies as the Warrior dividend bonus. So I guess instead of it having to be used for housing, it's just going to be a check that can be used for anything, if I'm reading this correctly. So Mark Alford sent that to me this morning, and he said he wanted to make sure that we got it to this audience. So there you go. That's where the money's coming from. It's basically being rebranded in some sense, but I guess it also can be used for anything now, right? If you're just getting the check versus saying, hey, this is for housing, rents, mortgages, whatever, I guess that's allowed. I don't know.
And to your point, though, this was focused on the military, though, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah.
The money was just for the military. It was supposed to be for rent and mortgages, but now it's just a check. So I don't know. That's at least it's an answer.
Don't blow it all in one place.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Now, we got the inflation number this morning. Take a listen to this. Mark, let's get that clip that I put in there from CNBC if we could. The inflation number was expected to come in at 3.1%. The morning after the president basically gives his economic pitch to the American people, he gets an outstanding inflation number. And here was the reaction and what it sounded like. And this audio comes courtesy of CNBC. Here we go.
The number of the morning, the CPI, maybe coming in a little bit better than expected. 2.7%, a little light here. I'm just reading the headlines here. Year over year, 2.7. Ex-food and energy core, 2.6. So 0.4 off. That is a very good number here. And it really, I have not looked at the internals. I'll look at them now, but it suggests that the internals are good as well. Let's see, year over year, over the last 12 months. There is no month to month, but some guys will be able to calculate. Seasonally adjusted index for all items less food and energy rose 0.2% over the 2 months. So correct my math here, Michael Santoli, but 0.2 divided by 2 is 0.1.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's a very, very low monthly rate here. The index for shelter increase, so you did get a really nice decline in shelter, which was 0.2. And so that was 0.1 per month.
All right, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade here. That's a good number, okay? It's a good number, no doubt about it. But here's why January is going to matter more. Inflation was running 3% since April. Then we have the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Unfortunately, the government is still too big of a part of the economy. The Trump administration is doing a great job on this. We're down 300,000 federal workers in the last 14 months. We are at the lowest number of federal workers in 10 years. That's great news. Government's getting too big. Tell people to go get a job in the real world. I'm sorry. Go work in the private sector, okay? Shed government jobs, keep doing it. That's a big win. But we had a big government shutdown. The government is still too large a part of the economy. And after running at about 3% inflation since April, we paused for a shutdown, and then boom, we hit our lowest levels since 21. I'm not saying this isn't good news, but I want to give you a perspective here that just says, hey, let's make sure we get to next month, see what January looks like before we sit here and declare victory. That's it. That's all I'm suggesting. December and January numbers are going to be very informative. And they'll give us a better idea as to whether or not this is a trend that is going to continue or if this was a blip on the radar. That's what it's going to tell us. 913-408-7957. The other thing to note here, and I'm going to share this on X at Pete Mundo. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Earnings growth has outpaced inflation the entire year. The average American weekly paycheck now buys 1.6% more than it did in January. This after it fell 4% under the prior president. It's early. There's work to do, but there are trends, and I just shared it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can see it for yourself on social media. There are trends that suggest, once again, 26, we can really get this thing rocking and rolling. And boy, would that be a welcome sight. 913-408-7957 is how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio. It's great to be here, as always, on what is a busy Thursday morning of news. We've got our caller of the day coming up at the bottom of the hour here on KCMO Talk Radio. The Nick Reiner story continues to get worse, continues to get more concerning, and some new information on that we'll share with you coming up next on KCMO.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from New York City, we'll get reaction to President Trump's speech from the White House last night. Coming up at 2 o'clock on 95.7 KCMO.
We're getting a lot more information on Nick Reiner, his background, what his parents, Rob and Michelle, dealt with before they were allegedly tragically killed by their own child. New York Post has a piece here that Nick Reiner threw terrifying tantrums even as a kid. According to a family friend who has known Rob Reiner his whole life, the outbursts were so violent that Nick Reiner often had to be physically held back by his father, with the unidentified lifelong friend telling the Daily Mail of seeing, quote, so much anger in his eyes even as a kid. Many of the family fights had to do with Nick just doing something self-destructive and fighting back when they tried to help him, the friend said. It did get physical sometimes, said this family friend. I'm not talking punches, but restraining him. This friend said, I was over there. It must have been in the early 2000s. Nick was about 11, and he was throwing the biggest tantrum, and Rob just had him in a bear hug to restrain him. This goes on to note that this happened a lot. He never outgrew it. He had tantrums into his 20s. Now, this is interesting. The friend who had spoken with Nick's grieving older brother, Jake, this week, believes that Rob Reiner and Michelle, the parents, babied their son, who spent most of his life in and out of drug rehab programs. This is something that I know is very relatable to many of us if you have somebody in your life who has dealt with addiction. It's a fine line between wanting to help someone and then babying them to the point of it backfiring on everybody. Now, no one ever expects a tragic ending like this, and most people who deal with mental health issues don't have it in them. Let's be honest, this level of alleged evil in them to do something like this. But I'm sure I could open up the phones to those of you who have dealt with children, grandchildren, siblings, other family members, close friends who have dealt with addiction, who you've tried to help, and you're wondering, am I actually helping too much? Is this backfiring? Am I babying this person? Does this person need a little dose of reality? Do they need to find their own bottom and dig themselves out? You know, I think about someone we had on the show here, and that's the founder of Healing House Kansas City, Bobby Jo Reed. She was on the show for a Feature Friday segment. Oh, that might have been, 3 weeks ago or so? She was on the show. She's built an amazing operation at Healing House. They help people who are dealing with addiction right here in Kansas City, in the historic Northeast. And she was a former addict herself. I mean, she had gone through it all. I mean, she's now born again, but she had abortions and, was out on the streets and nearly died a bunch of times. And, she talks about how her parents tried to help her. Ultimately, they couldn't. And she had to hit rock bottom herself. And she did. And through her faith, she was able to dig out of it. And now she's got one of the most incredible stories and operations here in Kansas City, going on 25 years of success with Healing House Kansas City. Everyone has a different story, but I know that is going to be very relatable to a lot of people. And it ties back to the fact that, whatever you think of Rob Reiner's politics against Trump, I mean, to me, it's totally irrelevant. The guy was a father who was just trying to help his kid. That's all he was. He sent them to rehab. He did all the things that theoretically parents are supposed to do. And even though he had all the money in the world to spend as much as he wants on his child, money couldn't solve it. He had access to the best facilities, the best rehabs in the world. And they could not get this kid on the right track. Not a kid, he's 32. This man on the right track. They could not buy themselves peace with their own child. And then to have this kind of just absolutely tragic ending to it all, man. And I'm not going to bring this back up and beat a dead horse, but it just reiterates why, Trump's statement on this was just, so out of bounds on so many levels. We also have this that came out from Page 6. The night of the murder, Nick Reiner was at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, as we now know. But there is some information that has come out as to why Nick was there. He was there because his parents didn't trust him to be home alone. He was living in the guest house in their Brentwood home in Los Angeles. And Rob and Michelle did not want to leave Nick at the house by himself because he had been under watchful supervision. So Rob Reiner calls up Conan O'Brien and says, hey, do you mind if I bring Nick along? I'll try to make sure he doesn't bother anybody, I guess. But do you mind if I bring him along? Because I just don't want to leave him at home because of what he's been going through. And Conan O'Brien says, sure. Now, at the party, Nick was apparently totally whacked out, totally weird, and was asking guests 3 different questions. Asking them, 1, what's your first name? What's your last name? And whether or not you're famous. That's like what my 7-year-old would ask somebody at a party. I'd be like, hey, we're going to this party of this famous guy. And she would go around and talk to people and say, what's your name? Are you famous? Nick Ryder, he's 32. He knows half these people. He's grown up in this, right? And I guess there was some beef and some issue with Bill Hader. And then what happens is they end up leaving the party early. Rob, Michelle, and Nick leave the party early. Rob is apologizing to Conan O'Brien for the actions of his son. And then the guy ends up, allegedly getting killed by his own kid just a few hours later, John.
Yeah, Bill Hader had recounted in the thing, like he's standing there talking to somebody, and here comes Nick up, and he starts his shtick, and I guess Bill said, hey, I'm talking to him here. We're kind of talking. And so then Nick was just standing there glaring at him, giving him the evil eye, which was described as being uncomfortable, as you might imagine. So it was more than just, hey, F you, and then Nick walks off. He just stood there glaring at him when Bill just said, hey, I'm kind of talking to this guy here.
It was clearly a beyond disturbed man is what he is. No matter what comes out of this, trial and how this whole thing goes, he is a beyond disturbed young man. But my takeaway, too, and the more of these stories you see, is that Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner, they loved their son. They cared deeply about their son. They wanted to help their son in every way possible. These were not derelict parents. And to think that their love of their child may have also been the reason they ended up losing their lives, it is as tragic as it gets. It really is. Coming up, we'll do our caller of the day. We do it each and every morning at 9:30. You get absolutely nothing for being the caller of the day outside of hearing yourself. And our caller of the day had some beef with one of our guests this morning. Who and why? We will share with you coming up on KCMO.
from the nation's heartland. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Our caller of the day was not happy with the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas. He joined us at 7:30 this morning. Missed it, it'll be up on the podcast after the show. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe there. Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. So the end of the conversation with the mayor turned to the police budget. You know, the cops want a 21% increase in their budget to $420 million. You know, I got the back the blue thing going. I don't think anybody with a microphone will back the blue like we will here on KCMO Talk Radio. But the police budget in 23-24 was $275 million. They now want $420. That's 50% over, 3-4 years? I'm sorry, that's a lot of money. I'm not saying they shouldn't get it. I just need a lot of transparency and knowing what the heck that's for at a time when this city's going bankrupt, or at least is going to be in the red in the general fund. Not going bankrupt, that's too strong. Not yet, at least. But they're not in a good financial place. And I know two things can be true. The city spends money on stupid stuff around here, but you really got to justify a 50% increase in your budget over 3 years. I mean, no one's getting 50% raises over 3 years. If you're a taxpayer, it's like, okay, I got the cops back, but I got to see what that's for here. So I asked the mayor about that this morning, and here's what he had to say.
No, I'm not on board with that. I mean, I think that when the city is forecasting a $100 million revenue shortfall, and don't get me wrong, the weeks ahead, I've dug into the budget because I believe in great fiscal responsibility. I think we have it. And right now in Kansas City government, for example, we are $50 million above our fund balance target, meaning that we are performing very well in being fiscally responsible. All that being said, part of how you stay fiscally responsible is you don't spend like drunken sailors. Kansas City Police Department and their progress is vital to us, and I have appreciated not just the hiring growth. I think there's been greater strength. We're seeing that in non-fatal shootings down and more. I'd like to think, frankly, myself, the Board of Police Commissioners who had a part of all of that trajectory, and certainly the budgets that we've introduced have as well. But in recent years, we've seen a 12% increase that helped us hire a lot more officers. Another year, I think last year, we saw about an 8% increase. Those are robust at a time in government where you're freezing other departments. A 20% increase looks, I think like something I don't know if the city can handle in sheer cost. And so, there will be real negotiation on it. We will make sure the police, particularly our rank and file officers, are taken care of. But a 21% budget increase, I don't know who in government other than ICE has been able to actually sustain that increase. And as we know in the federal government, they don't worry about deficits. They print a lot of money. And frankly, I wish President Trump, if he'd listened to me, which he most likely won't, would shift a lot of that money to local law enforcement in America rather than instituting $30,000, $40,000 hiring bonuses for ICE folks that is actually poaching a lot of local law enforcement all around America.
So at the end there, he went after the big guy when he said, what if the federal government used some of the money that it just prints and gives it to major American cities to hire cops or help out with staffing? And that led to our caller of the day on KCMO.
It's the Mundo in the Morning caller of the day on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Donna is in Paola. Hello, Donna. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I caught the tail end of Quinton Lucas's comments about what he would like Trump to do if Trump would listen to him, which is to give more money to him and other Democratic mayors for their police department. My problem with that is Democratic mayors are telling their police department they can't do what ICE is doing or help them enforce the law. So why would Trump do that? That's my question.
Yeah. Why would he do that? It's never going to happen, just to be very clear. But the mayor's saying, hey, you guys can just print money. Can we get some back here? Especially as major American cities, not as much Kansas City compared to like Chicago, New York, places like that. But as most major American cities are run by his political opponents and are not cooperating by and large with the administration and some of their initiatives as it relates to illegal immigration. Why is he going to hand you guys a check? I mean, at least pretend you got to play the game at least, right? I mean, geez, look at Mamdani. The guy shows up at the White House and Trump's like, hey, he might be pretty good. Yeah, which is nonsense, by the way. He's going to be terrible. But either way, I mean, you at least got to play the game, right? So there's no way it's happening. This administration is not going to hand out money to major American cities to pay their police departments because, let's be honest, how did we get here to begin with? We got here to begin with because George Floyd died, and then the country went nuts and basically said all cops are racist. 750,000 local cops in this country were branded because of one guy in Minneapolis. And then you had people retiring at record rates, not wanting to apply to be cops. And as a result, many police departments, not just in major American cities, even in suburban communities, are still short-staffed because you don't have enough people who want to get into the line of work. And what were these major American city mayors and council people doing at the time? They were protesting right along with them. And now a few years later, they're like, boy, we got to pay a lot of money to the cops. No one wants to be a cop. It's a supply and demand issue. They got to pay more because people don't want to do the job because you guys made the job wildly unappealing during the summer of love. And we're still, unfortunately, paying the price for that. And that's how we find ourselves where we do today. Coming up later today, it is expected that the President of the United States is going to reclassify marijuana from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug. Charlie Gasparino, of course, he is a Mizzou alum. He is on Fox Business as a contributor there. He had the scoop last night saying that his pot industry sources say President Trump is expected to reschedule marijuana today at 12:30 Central Time, taking it from a Schedule I controlled substance like heroin to a Schedule III like anabolic steroids, meaning the U.S. banking system will be able to finance vast parts of the pot industry. Yesterday, we talked about this a little bit, and we got callers who were like, this is bad, pot's bad. And generally, I don't think legalizing marijuana has brought anything positive to our society and culture by and large. I don't. But I admit I feel hypocritical if I go out and have a drink and then say, no, you can't smoke your pot, when, there's plenty of evidence to suggest people who can't control their alcohol are much more dangerous than people who can't control their pot. So I admit I struggle with it. But I was talking to somebody yesterday who's a conservative libertarian here in Kansas, and he's a big proponent of marijuana. He's been through cancer. He's still battling cancer, technically. He's basically been living with cancer for several years. He's been a big advocate trying to get Topeka to move on at least medical marijuana. Of course, there's no evidence to suggest that's happening anytime soon. But he goes, honestly, who's going to be most bummed about this? Marijuana going from Schedule I to Schedule III? Big Pharma. He said part of this, and we talked about it yesterday, is that now you can get the FDA doing more research on marijuana, the pros and cons, if it comes down to a Schedule III. And his belief is that as more research is done on marijuana, and it turns out that there can be benefits on the health side for certain people in certain situations, Big Pharma is going to get screwed. And I'm like, I'm in, man. If screwing Big Pharma potentially is part of the answer here, I am all in on this. And it doesn't mean I'm going down to smoke pot or go to a pot store if it's ever legalized in Kansas, or I go to Missouri and smoke pot. I'm not going to do it. It's not something I have any interest in. But if this can lead to people finding more natural remedies to some of the issues they're facing, that doesn't involve pushing pills on people, I'm not against that at all. At all. In fact, I totally support that. So we'll see if that announcement does come down today at the White House. Once again, Charlie Gasparino reporting that at 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central, we could be having that. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled takes over at 10 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. You can stream us at kcmotalkradio.com. Coming up, my Travis Kelce theory that I'm hanging my hat on as a possibility. Coming up next on 95.7 FM.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
I don't think it's a crazy theory. Maybe I'm hanging around Keatsman too much, coming out with these cockamamie ideas. He's rubbing off on me. I think that's what this is really all about. But yesterday we were talking about this off the air between our shows, and Kevin said, what if Kelce just announced next week he's going to basically retire, and Thursday, Christmas night's his last game at Arrowhead Stadium, and suddenly there's a lot of enthusiasm and interest in that game in a way that there otherwise would not be. I mean, let's be honest. There is no juice for that game next Thursday night. Arrowhead Stadium, Chiefs-Broncos, Christmas night. It is going to be 65 degrees, so if you're looking to get out, I mean, it's going to be a great day for that, John.
I don't know if we can close the border at Derby to keep the Broncos fans from storming in there and taking up the seats, but, we might look into that.
Is this when I should break the news to you that when I scheduled a fill-in host for the day after Christmas, it just so happened to be John Whitmer, who's a Broncos fan?
Great.
I know. I'm sorry. I screwed that up for a lot of reasons. I apologize. But yeah, shame on me. I got a lot of moving parts this time of year, John. I wasn't thinking about whether or not I'd have a Broncos fan in the day after the Chiefs-Broncos game.
I think after 10 years of glory, we can rise above it. It's cute that they're all exuberant in Denver again.
That's great. I love that approach. See, take the high ground. That's what you always do, John. You're so good at that.
Well, on the show. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I got thinking about Keatsman's idea, and then I thought to myself, okay, the game's on Amazon next Thursday night. There's no enthusiasm for the game. Travis Kelce and his brother, Jason, have this podcast deal that just so happens to be with Amazon, worth $100 million. Could Travis Kelce throw his podcast partners who are paying him and his brother 9 figures a bone by saying, you know what, guys? You need a little juice on that Christmas night game you paid a fortune for? I'll announce my retirement maybe on Wednesday on next week's New Heights podcast. That helps out Amazon, get some big numbers, helps out Amazon Thursday night when, of course, they're going to be airing the game. And bing, bang, boom, there you go. Everyone's happy now. Ticket prices go up. Clark Hunt's a happy camper. Arrowhead's rocking. Travis Kelce's goodbye because that's their last home game of the season. And he sails off into the sunset. You get some big numbers for that Christmas night game.
Stocking stuffers for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
look, 4 tickets.
I'm looking at it right now. StubHub, you can get in for $50, including fees. Just saying.
$50, 50 degrees. Going to be a great night.
I know. And here's the thing, too. If you want to make a bet that Kelce might end up calling it a career, those prices are going to double at least if he does announce that.
You know, one thing I wish Chiefs fans would pick up on, it's more prevalent in England where they haze the other fans. So I don't understand why Chiefs fans have never picked up on an incomplete pass here. Whenever the Broncos throw that incomplete pass, they chant that. It'll drive you nuts if you ever go to a Denver game and the Chiefs get stomped, which I have. I heard that a dozen times, and they love it. And I don't know why we don't taunt them with that, so this would be a good game to start it.
What do they chant? What do they do?
Well, whenever the Chiefs throw an incomplete pass on the field, the whole stadium, in, come, please.
Oh, is that what they do? All right.
Every time.
Well, Kate's got a good friend from college who lives out there in Denver. Mm-hmm. So at some point, we're going to bring the kids out and maybe go to a game. So now I'm forewarned on that, John.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It'll drive you nuts. The Chiefs got pelted one year when I went there. They couldn't even make a game of it, and I'm just sitting there going, oh. That was the old Municipal Stadium, too. That was fun.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, now I have that to look forward to at some point. But, yeah, $50 to get into the game right now. Go figure. Go make sense of that. The stock market is on fire this morning with the inflation numbers coming in well below expectations. You know why the market's on fire, too? Not only because of that number, but they believe it probably means more rate cuts coming sooner rather than later. So the NASDAQ's up 400 points, almost 2% on the NASDAQ. Dow Jones is up 400 points. That's up almost 1%. S&P's up 1.3%, 86 points in the green right now. Everything in the stock market is rocking and rolling. Trump could not have had a better 12 hours when you stack up a good, tight speech, 18 minutes last night, prime time. Everybody carried it. And then you've got the inflation number that comes out this morning, stock market, which I know is not Main Street, but still, it's just another good piece of a data point for him here in the wake of last night's speech. And we'll see how it sets up for 2026. I do wonder if Trump played the media yesterday, including people who are supposedly his own supporters. You may have seen on social media, Tucker Carlson and some other people were like, I'm hearing that Trump's going to announce we're going to war with Venezuela. I mean, that was all over my feed yesterday, which might say more about my feed and my algorithm than anything else. But I'm like, what? Tucker said he had it on good authority. Somebody in Congress told him that Trump's announcing war with Venezuela. Yes.
He was talking to Candace.
Well, it's been a rough week for the grifters and the conspiracy theorists, okay? It's been a rough week. Candace getting owned by her own people over Erica Kirk's meeting, and now Tucker having a rough day as well. And I wonder if that was floated out there as a way to make sure some of these networks that might not have thought of carrying the presidential address to end up carrying the presidential address.
3D chess.
This is one where I'm buying into the 3D chess.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people saw that speech that instead of watching Survivor, they had to watch Trump for 20 minutes. And they probably learned a lot of stuff that you might hear on KCMO, but you do not hear anywhere else.
Trump's office thing goes, activate useful idiots.
And it might have worked to a T.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And by the way, we were happy that we carried it last night. Our competitors, who call themselves the news station of Kansas City, did not have a presidential address to the nation. Go figure. We'll see you tomorrow. Keatsman is next.